The Lord delivered David from an impossible situation. He was on his way to battle with the Philistines against his people Israel. A battle at which God has said Saul and his sons will die. The Philistine commanders did not trust David's presence among them and told King Achish, "Send him back." God's sovereignty. So David and his men started back to Ziklag, the place they'd been given in Philistine territory. Let's see what happens. I'm in chapter 30, verse 1, reading from the New American Standard Version. Then it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day that the Amalekites had made a raid on the Negev and on Ziklag, and had overthrown Ziklag and burned it with fire. And they took captive the women and all who were in it, both small and great, without killing anyone, and carried them off and went their way. When David and his men came to the city, behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters had been taken captive. You remember the Amalekites from chapter 15. These are the people whom God had told Saul to utterly destroy because of their wickedness. They saw an opportunity with the Philistines, and David and his men gone off to battle and decided to go on a raid. You can imagine that David and his men, number one, were glad they didn't have to march to battle against their own people, and number two, had been looking forward to getting back to their loved ones. Now their city is burned and their loved ones are gone. Continuing verse 4, then David and the people who were with him lifted their voices and wept until there was no strength in them to weep. Now David's two wives had been taken captive, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess and Abigail, the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. Moreover, David was greatly distressed because the people spoke of stoning him, for all the people were embittered, each one because of his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. We love this, don't we? We have not seen David acknowledge God in 3 chapters, the man after God's heart. But now he's in a desperate situation, heartbroken and devastated because of what the Amalekites have done, and greatly distressed because his own people want to stone him. He knows who to turn to. He's clinging again. God is our strength. David said in Psalm 18:1, I love you, O Lord, my strength. And when God strengthens you, you have the power to do what you need to do. Continuing verse 7, then David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, please bring me the ephod. So Abiathar brought the ephod to David. David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I pursue this band? Shall I overtake them? And he said to him, pursue, for you will surely overtake them, and you will surely rescue all. Yep, he's back, inquiring of God, and God answered him. He didn't say, David, you were kind of tripping with all that Philistine stuff. I'm really not trying to hear you right now. That's not the heart of God. God knows David is a man after his heart. He's human, he makes mistakes, but he loves God. And God is there for David. So encouraging for us all. Continuing verse 9, so David went, he and the 600 men who were with him, and came to the brook Bezor, where those left behind remained. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 who were too exhausted to cross the brook Besor remained behind. These men had been marching to battle with the Philistines, then had a 3-day march back to Ziklag. You can imagine the emotional exhaustion dealing with their wives and children being taken. So 200 men too exhausted to continue. But you know David's not too exhausted. It says David pursued. He was operating in the strength of God. Continuing verse 11, now they found an Egyptian in the field and brought him to David and gave him bread, and he ate, and they provided him water to drink. They gave him a piece of fig cake and 2 clusters of raisins, and he ate. Then his spirit revived, for he had not eaten bread or drunk water for 3 days and 3 nights. David said to him, to whom do you belong, and where are you from? And he said, I am a young man of Egypt, a servant of an Amalekite, and my master left me behind when I fell sick 3 days ago. We made a raid on the Negev of the Cherethites, and on that which belongs to Judah, and on the Negev of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. Then David said to him, will you bring me down to this band? And he said, swear to me by God that you will not kill me or deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will bring you down to this band. It seems this is when David first learns that it's the Amalekites who took their loved ones. We're told in verse 1, but now they know. God told David he would overtake them, and in his sovereignty, this Egyptian was left behind such that David and his men could find him and be led to the Amalekites. Verse 16, when he had brought him down, behold, they were spread over all the land, eating and drinking and dancing because of all the great spoil that they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah. You know David is hot seeing this. You burned my city and took our wives and children, and you are partying? At the same time, this is a good thing. The Amalekites are not suspecting an attack at all. They think the Philistines and David and his men are gone off to battle. The Amalekites are vulnerable, spread all over, probably drunk. David swoops into action. Continuing verse 17, David slaughtered them from the twilight until the evening of the next day, and not a man of them escaped, except 400 young men who rode on camels and fled. So David recovered all that the Amalekites had taken and rescued his 2 wives, but nothing of theirs was missing, whether small or great, sons or daughters, spoil or anything that they had taken for themselves. David brought it all back. So David had captured all the sheep and the cattle which the people drove ahead of the other livestock, and they said, this is David's spoil. Notice the emphasis the text puts on David. Verse 17, David slaughtered. Verse 18, David recovered and rescued. Verse 19, David brought it all back. Verse 20, David captured. This is David's spoil. His people wanted to stone him, but David strengthened himself in God, inquired of God, and God gave him a great victory. God gets the glory. Continuing verse 21, when David came to the 200 men who were too exhausted to follow David, who had also been left at the brook Besor, and they went out to meet David and to meet the people who were with him, then David approached the people and greeted them. Then all the wicked and worthless men among those who went with David said, because they did not go with us, we will not give them any of the spoil that we have recovered, except to every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart. Then David said, you must not do so, my brothers, with what the Lord has given us, who has kept us and delivered into our hand the band that came against us. And who will listen to you in this matter? For as his share is who goes down to the battle, so shall his share be who stays by the baggage. They shall share alike. So it has been from that day forward that he made it a statute and an ordinance for Israel to this day. These men are acting as if they acquired all this spoil because they showed up to the battle. If it weren't for God, they would have gotten slaughtered and had no spoils to enjoy. David says this is what the Lord has given us. He kept them, he delivered them, and all of them would share in the fruit. God is developing David as a leader. Continuing verse 26, now when David came to Ziklag, he sent some of the spoil to the elders of Judah, to his friends, saying, behold, a gift for you from the spoil of the enemies of the Lord. To those who were in Bethel, and to those who were in Ramoth of the Negev, and to those who were in Jatir, and to those who were in Aroer, and to those who were in Siphmoth, and to those who were in Eshtemoa, and to those who were in Rakal, and to those who were in the cities of the Jerahmeelites, and to those who were in the cities of the Kenites, and to those who were in Hormah, and to those who were in Bor-Ashan, and to those who were in Athak, and to those who were in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself and his men were accustomed to go. So remember, the Amalekites had raided land in Judah as well. So some of these spoils belonged to them. And just think, what if God had not saved David from going to battle against Israel? David would have been positioned against his people. Now he's able to bless them with some of the spoil. Also, if God had not saved David from going to that battle, all the men would still be gone. They wouldn't know for some time that their city was raided and burned and their loved ones taken. They wouldn't have been able to pursue and overtake the Israelites and recover their loved ones so quickly, if at all. So many blessings from God. And I just have to go back to God's strength. We have times in our lives when we are heartbroken, devastated, greatly distressed, nothing in ourselves that's able to stand against whatever we're facing. Like David, we need to strengthen ourselves in God. How do we do that? Talk to God. Pour out your heart. Say to him, Lord, I need your strength. Thank you that when I am weak, your power makes me strong. Spending time with the Lord, delighting in him, putting on worship music and praising him keeps our focus on him. We are strengthened in that. Strengthen yourself in God by going to his word. Feast on who he is, what he's done, what he's able to do. Get some go-to verses on God's strength, like Psalm 46:1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Psalm 68:28. Your God has commanded your strength. Show yourself strong, O God, who have acted on our behalf. Meditate on that for a minute. God commanding your strength. Psalm 73:26. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. There are endless blessings in clinging to God. In weakness, in trouble, when your flesh and your heart fail, clothe yourself in his strength.